All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today for our webcast on using NetSuite Services Resource Planning. We're going to do an overview as well as a demonstration of the SRP module. My name is Joanne Casley, and I'm on the business development team here at GSI. I'm very pleased to introduce our presenter for today, Jennifer Sansky. Jennifer is an experienced business analyst and is a NetSuite consultant here at GSI. She has many years of experience working with various ERP systems, including JD Edwards and NetSuite, and has a strong background in supply chain and distribution as well as UPK. Jennifer also holds a supply chain analytics certification from MIT. Before we get started today, I want to give you all a chance to review our safe harbor statement. And then I just want to go over the agenda for today's webcast, which should last about 45 to 55 minutes. First, we'll go over a couple of quick housekeeping items. Then I'll provide a brief company overview before turning it over to Jennifer for the main presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll go over our upcoming educational events and then wrap up with a 10-minute Q&A session. If you would like to submit a question, you can do so through the questions panel, which should be located at the bottom of the GoToWebinar console window on the right side of your screen. Please note that all questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If you would like to minimize your GoToWebinar console during the presentation, just click that red right-facing arrow key at the top left of the console. Now for a brief overview of GSI. GSI is a full-service consulting organization specializing in NetSuite, JD Edwards, and Oracle Cloud ERP systems, as well as Salesforce CRM. We are an Oracle Platinum partner that was founded in 2004, and we now have over 100 employees with offices nationwide. GSI has been recognized twice on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in the U.S. GSI specializes in project consulting, managed services, and cloud and hosting services. And all of our services are backed with our 100% guarantee. In addition, we are a product development company. We have many popular products, including Genius, an advanced monitoring and performance analytics solution for any business critical system on any platform. Genesis, our load, stress, and regression testing application for system design, validation, or expansion, and that can be used on any web-based business critical system as well. G Shield, which is GSI's two-factor authentication and password reset solution for JD Edwards. Rapid Approval, a configurable application for quickly processing workflow approval requests in Salesforce. JD eCloud9, our private hosting solution for JD Edwards. And finally, Rapid Reconciler, which is GSI's Oracle-validated tool for inventory in transit and received not vouchered reconciliation. And now I would like to turn things over to Jennifer for our main presentation.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen from you.
Absolutely.
All right, now we'll close the presentation. So just to give everyone a brief introduction as to what we'll be talking about today, I'm going to go just a little bit through some generic overview of NetSuite, and then we'll go ahead and get into the SRP portion. I know we're talking about the uses of SRP today, so I'll just go ahead and say this is our service resource planning tool in NetSuite. This is really meant for anyone who is trying to look at project management, job costs, and tracking any projects, whether they're internal or that is your business, throughout the entire process to really get that overview of analytics and find out where you're losing, perhaps, and where you're really gaining in your costs and your revenue. So this is a great tool that works well within NetSuite and really links everything together so that you're not redundant in your data entry, and you can get a great overview of where your business stands with projects and project management. So to go into NetSuite a little bit first, it is a fully integrated cloud ERP solution that gives you real-time visibility across your entire business. NetSuite allows companies to store all of their business information in one location, and with the relationship database structure, it really allows the view of the overall processes with easily generated dashboards, reports, and searches. Of course, this is over all of the modules, so again, we'll be looking at the SRP portion of that today. Because it is a cloud solution, it saves the hassle of maintenance and integration. And it also easily and quickly is accessible from any web browser. It was founded in 1998 and was the first cloud ERP solution, which means it's been around for a while and is really able to continue with those enhancements, making the end result just better for the user. NetSuite is a single data source, so as a company, there is one software to house all of the aspects of your business. This really makes the analytics, again, much easier and visible across the entire business. There is less software, which means less upkeep and less integration, and that also, of course, means less to troubleshoot. NetSuite is configurable and highly customizable, so it ensures that it fits your business needs, even down to the terminology. And it's a SaaS model, which means it's software as a service, of course, hosted over the internet, and means that you can log in from anywhere. We also have of course, that structure we just talked about, but here's an overview on this slide, sorry about that, of what we're going to go over today. So you can see that we'll look at the client, the product, and resource management. We'll also briefly look at the time and expenses and how all of this feeds into the system. So again, you get those overall analytics within NetSuite and the environment. And now we're going to go ahead, guys, and jump right on into the demo environment. And just to put this out there, this is a demo environment that is used by more than one company. So any kind of delays that you might see today, that is the demo environment. But as a user of NetSuite within our own company, I can assure you that that is not an issue with the regular environment. Okay, so we're going to start today in our demo environment as an administrator. And I really want to go over the places in the system that SRP pulls from in order to generate reports. And links records provide all of the information a business really needs to plan and allocate and then analyze projects. So first thing is we're going to go to our employee list and look at how our employees are designed as resources in here. And to do that, we'll go into our list, our employees, and we're going to click on the employees link instead of creating a new one to view a current employee. So we're going to go on into Abby Kwan here. We'll edit this record just so we can see everything it has to offer. And down here, we're really interested in, we have our classification information, of course, within Abby Kwan's record. We do have our department, our billing class, and our class and subsidiary. But what we're looking for right now is our type of employee, and this again all feeds into SRP, our ability to use this employee as a project resource, which we check right here in the record, and then details like our employee status, is this a part-time or a full-time employee, the work calendar. This is incredibly important to SRP as this is going to dictate what kind of shifts this person would be available for. So if you have night shifts, if you have weekends, this is where you would set up the work calendar based on their role and can designate which place they belong in and where they're going to then come up as a resource that's available. You also have your resource allocation approver based on the employee. So again, that can change depending on your management structure, your hire date, and then any review dates if necessary. Down here, some other fields that you're going to see when we get into the project level is your labor cost, your time approver and expense approver. Again, that's just for that cycle of approval processes. And if you have expense limits or expense approval limits, those can all be filled in here as well. And down at the bottom, we do have some tabs I wanted to, again, review. So our education, this is just a good place where if there are qualifications that an employee needs to have or a resource, you can go ahead and fill out the education levels in here. And then we're going to go over to billing rates tab. And this, again, is going to feed into SRP and all those analytics that we're going to see later. So this is where your billing rates go. And when we talk about billing classes a little bit later, that'll allow you to set up different billing classes so you can have different billing rates depending on the resource if you need multiple. As we scroll back up, I'm going to also click on our skills and expertise here. This again feeds into that SRP resourcing portion because this will allow us to pull resources based on their skills. This is not only available in the employee record, so somebody doesn't need to have HR access in order to get to the skills when they're looking for resources. That's very important just to keep the company secure, of course. So what we're looking at with skills and expertise gives us product knowledge. You can also, of course, change these to fit your business, the name of these if you need to. For this particular demo environment, we have product knowledge, technical skills, projects that have been worked on in the past, and then anything for a portfolio. So again, you can really change these and adapt these to what your business needs. If there's certain licenses required for a resource or for a project, those kind of things can be housed here. And that again helps you select your resources, not only based on availability, but based on experience and key factors needed for that. Okay, so now that we've looked at our employee record, we're going to discuss resource allocations a little bit more and the foundation of those in the employee record. So resource allocations allow resources with specific sets of skills, as we just discussed, to be designated to the right area without being overbooked. So as an example, if maybe we're a tour company and we need to designate some equipment to go out on tours as well as tour guides, we can go ahead and designate not only the resources that are tangible and equipment necessary, but we can also do our generic resources before we actually book a person, and then we can book our people as well as resources to that within NetSuite SRP. We would set up our non-person resources by going to Activities and Setup. We would book our generic resources by going under Employees and Generic Resources. And then, of course, our regular employees are set up under Lists, Relationships, and Resources. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the resources. I mentioned those billing classes earlier. Those would be found by going into Setup, Accounting, and Billing classes. I'm just going to go in here to give you an example. So again, if you have a resource that fits into more than one category and they're going to have different rates for each of those, this is where you can set up those billing classes, and then you can fill in those rates based on the billing class. So that's how we take advantage of the multiple rates here in NetSuite. In our next step, we will create go into a project, and look at how all of this kind of comes together. So we're going to go on into our lists, relationships, and projects. And when we come in here, we're going to open up this. Again, this is the demo environment, and we'll go ahead and look at the CRM migration. So again, when we're in here, we're going to notice that at the top we have our primary information, project name, status. All these lists are, of course, customizable, currency, and, of course, your custom form, which for those of you who have joined us before on these webinars, you know that all of your forms can be customized up here in the right-hand field as long as you're an administrator. You can add in fields or take away fields that aren't pertinent to your company. You can also create new lists or alter lists, again, to fit your needs. So the view that you see here can be completely customized just to fit the fields that you need in your business. When we look down here at our project overview, you're going to notice you've got your start and end dates, and that's based on work breakdown structures. The actual work versus estimated work. This is your estimated minus your actual. This last baseline, this is a snapshot of your original estimates for the project plan before your work begins. And then you can use the baseline data for comparison to actual work and revise schedules later in the execution phase of the project. Your calculated percent complete, that is the percent of the total planned project time that has been completed. The percent work complete is calculated by dividing the total number of the actual hours worked and reported in time tracking by the number of hours entered in the estimated work field for the project task. And the percentage is 100 when the status of all project tasks are complete. If we scroll down into our schedule subtab, this is where our phases and tasks are housed. So you can really alter these based on what kind of projects you do within your company. This again is an example of more of a software kind of company, but they can be easily tailored. So depending on what you're looking for and what kind of statuses you're trying to track, you can set up phases that are really encompass the entire, almost the entire project. You might only have 3 phases with 1 task attached to each, where you can also go up to 20 tasks, 30, how it's indefinite amounts, and track every single detail just by linking those tasks. You can also set up milestones, and those allow you to bill or recognize revenue based on those milestones. So those are important to use if you bill based on a certain level, phase, or task that you've hit within your project. And just to show you what we would do to set up a task, we can come in here, we can enter a phase. We can put the status of where we want it to go. If there's a parent task that needs to be done or that houses the rest of the tasks within it, we could assign that here. On status, this is important just so that you know where you are in the process, and as well the system can recognize where you are within the project. Your estimated work, again, the more of these fields you fill in, the better off you are on those analytics we were talking about. So if you put in the estimated work, then you can see those estimated versus actuals and really have a good indication of where the project stands, what phases or tasks are maybe going a little bit longer, and adjust as necessary. So here we're just going to go ahead and put 20 in for 20 hours. We can then assign our generic resources, which we can go back in and allocate the resources from there, or we can assign resources that have already been applied to this particular project. That means it's been approved. Everyone said, okay, that person can go. Again, the estimated work for this resource. So this would be necessary and different from up here if this resource was going to have 10 hours and maybe we were going to add another resource below with a different amount of hours. Our unit cost, this does default based on our resource. We're going to add that line, and again, we're going to add a different resource here. You can see our billing class that we discussed earlier. So again, these are all very important parts that feed into the SRP system. We'll give 10 hours, and again, that unit cost defaulted in. And we'll hit save. So now this is going to update within our project tasks. There it is down here at the bottom. We did not relate this to our data migration. That's the reason that it's not indented here, because this is the parent task for, of course, all of these other tasks. So it gives you an idea of the structure. And again, here we've got in our project tasks and milestone schedule screen the overview of the estimated work of each of these resources and stages or tasks, the actual work, the remaining left in that particular task, the estimated cost, and then the revenue, which would then generate as hours are billed against us. We're going to go now to our budget tab. And I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this box here that says use calculated values for all cost budgets. You can do this to, again, calculate automatically, but I wanted to show you this because this is your budget tab that allows you to enter in by time period for labor, expenses, supplier, of course, other. You have a cost budget and a billing budget that works the same way. Going under our resources tab, if you noticed when I was working in those first phases and tasks, when I went to assign a resource, I only had 2 and then I had a bunch of generics. This is where those 2 are coming into the system as available. So again, this has already been looked at and approved by the resource manager for these people to be available for this project. And I don't know if you'll saw that, but as you hover over, you do get some information about that particular resource. I can also click on here to have my direct link into the resource to view skills and things necessary to really make sure I assign the right person. I'm going to go now to the P&L subtab. And this is a view of billing estimates, cost, and gross margin based on those cost categories. This section shows us that at any point in our project, we can find out where we stand. And these numbers, of course, come in again from resource costs, pricing, unbilled receivables, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're going to go over to our financial subtab. And here you're going to see quite a few different things. We've got our billing set up over to the left. This gives us our billing types that we'd already selected for this particular project, which is charge-based. You can add in a billing schedule. So we don't have a list of them in this one, but if your billing schedule is every 2 weeks, you want to go ahead and bill, maybe you want to bill your first month up front and then partial from that point forward. You can create a new billing schedule within NetSuite, and then you can apply that here. Your revenue recognition forecast rule. This is another one. Maybe you don't want to recognize all of the revenue as it's charged. Maybe you want to recognize that, as we talked about earlier, based on milestones. You would set up a revenue recognition forecast rule to do that, and that would allow you to automatically recognize the revenue without having to adjust in journal entries. Your total charges, this is going to be your amount billed. Again, these automatically calculate as things are generated within the system. So this takes into account timesheets, expenses, anything that's actually run through the system or paid on. It will automatically apply to this, and you can see what's been billed. You can see your open charges at any point in time. You can, over here, even see your labor charges and expense charges. So again, that overall 360 view of the entire project. And then down at the bottom, as we talked about, we have our revenue recognition percentage. Overrides, we can look at our charges that are currently in the system. Here's one that was a charge for data migration based on a milestone of $50,000. We can look at our charge run history. So these are the charges that have run within the system. And then any fees or rules that apply. So these are our billing rules. We can do fixed fee billing rules, a certain amount at a certain time. Again, this one is based on a milestone instead of a fixed date. You can, of course, have your time-based rules. So you can charge based on the time spent on the project, expenses, again, if those go against. And then, again, your revenue recognition rules. Any related transactions, again, since this is a fully encompassed ERP system here, if you're using CRM, any opportunities that happen to be related to this project, those will be housed here. They'll automatically default. These are linked directly based on the client. If there is a sales order in a project, that they're all related when generating those records immediately. As long as you select them, they will appear under here. So any sales orders as well. You can also create them directly from this tab if they're related to the project and you don't want to maybe go into a new sales order. If you have any costs, any support cases if you're using those capabilities within the system, of course, sub-projects, and then timesheets as well, and journal entries. Last but not least, we have our administration tab within our project, and this really gives us the example of our expense types. This is where we set those privileges. So are we allowed to put time against this? Maybe we put time, but we shouldn't put expenses. How do we want that time classified? Utilized, productive, things like that that really you need to determine on a project-by-project basis instead of an overall all projects in the system basis. So those are done here under your administration subtab. And down at the bottom, you do have a place for all your attachments related to the project, and of course any workflows that are set up. So here's a job costing default workflow that is related to this project. Okay, now that we've looked at that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of our administrator and jump in to project manager. So far we've looked at the components that really go in to setting up and feeding into a project. We've looked at a project itself and how that's set up, where we can get our analytics, how we can look at that within the project. And now we want to go into that project manager role and really look at great ways to see overall how all the projects in our business are running. So the first one we're actually pretty much going to stay on this page, and we'll just let the link take us off of it. But we're going to look at the KPIs first. Of course, on our dashlets, all of our KPIs are customizable, and custom ones can be built based on custom searches. In this example, we have our project billing forecast this month and last month, and our ups or downs. We have our billable hours this fiscal year to date, and things that maybe are more important to our project manager, utilization last month, and opportunities. We also have a reminders portlet here, and from our reminders space, we're going to close or going into time records to approve. This is where I'm going to segue a little bit into the time and expenses. So if you utilize these functions in NetSuite, this is again a very good way to keep everything housed together, and once these entries are made, it feeds directly into what we saw earlier. So our labor and our expenses go directly to the project. Those analytics are real time, and it's very, very easy to see at any point in time where your project stands, where your actual versus budget are. So I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to click on, we'll go into this timesheet here. And from here, as a project manager, I can go ahead and look at where this person has been, the date, the time, and either approve or reject just by these buttons right here. Very simple process. I can also reject with the no, but I'll go ahead and approve for fun. And coming back out. You can see how easy, after submitting a timesheet, it would be for somebody to go in and quickly approve those. Same with expense reports. You can click into an expense report. We can also mass approve here on the side. Once we get in there, we have that same type of view as we saw in our timesheets. We have our expenses. We can go down within each of the projects if we need to view any details on the project level that might relate. We can also attach our receipts and our files or view those here. And again, we can approve or reject as a manager directly from this screen. And then back to our dashboard. So this is a great way to use the reminders to quickly go in and keep up with those time records and expense records, as well as have that immediate visibility into how they're impacting the project. As we scroll down a little bit more, you can see some other uses for the projects. Our internal projects here, this is just something that you might want to set up just to monitor those internal projects within the company. And over to the right-hand side, we see a dashboard that's used to look at all of the projects we have within our company and where they stand on estimated versus actual, or the percent complete. So without even having to leave our home screen here, we can look and see that some of our projects haven't even started. Maybe that's not right and they're not on time. We can see others that perhaps they're approaching the actual work versus estimated pretty quickly, and we need to address that. This is a great, quick way to really look at your projects overall within your company and see where they're at without having to go throughout the entire system one by one. You can really gauge your focus there. As we scroll back down, we'll come back to our navigation portlet in a few minutes and look over the reports. But I do want to come down and point out a couple more great little dashboards we have in here. Our milestones this month. So again, those are milestones that when we were setting up our phases and tasks we were looking at. And these are ones that tells us our milestones are overdue. That's another great way of not having to go in one by one to check in your project and notify yourself with your direct link to the project here. Also, very important to project managers, resource allocations. You've heard me say that a lot. I know how important that is. So in our resource allocations, again, just constantly things can change on projects. Your end date might change. Your number of hours or your need for hours might change. This resource allocation dashboard I really enjoy because this one allows us to edit these things directly in it. And for a project manager, again, this means I don't have to go far. to be able to adjust the hours. If somebody calls and we have an adjustment, oops, I hit the error next time, I can go ahead and go directly into that field and adjust those hours there. Of course, it does track it within the system for me. I can also edit the date. But again, a quick way to get things done as a project manager without having to go into every single project. I just save time. Okay, so before we wrap up, we're going to go and look at some of our reports. As a PM, something that is ever important is our budget versus actual. As we go into here, I want you to notice on the bottom, of course, we can filter by subsidiary, say dates, and then this feature that is extremely fun is our columns. So right now we're set up on monthly columns to look at our projects, labor, and expenses. But if I go into maybe quarter and I hit refresh, this is then going to bring up those same project versus actuals based on the quarter. I can, of course, then do the same for annual. So this gives me a great quick overview of my project budget versus actual and what areas or what time frames it might have done better than others. Again, I can export any of these as all reports in NetSuite to Excel, PDF, CSV, or Word. We can also print, email, or schedule these to run here at the bottom. Okay, so we'll come on out of there and go in and look at another one of these standard reports for our projects. It's our allocated versus actual. Same thing we can do here with our columns. We can do class, department, location, and down at the bottom, again, that week, month, quarter, or year. Go ahead and go year and refresh, or month and refresh. And here we're getting an overview based on the month of our allocated time and our actual time. Again, for a PM, this is incredibly important. It gives you that real indication of where your accuracy is and where things need to change a little bit. We'll come back to our home page. And let's go into some forecasting of utilization. Again, here we can switch this around and refresh. And we can look at our allocated time, available time, and utilization by employee. Something, again, very nice for not only project management, but management when looking at the overall business. And we'll go into one more before we kind of wrap up for questions. Let's look at that project profitability. And if anyone has any questions right now, if you want to start putting those in the side panel, as this report is running open, so it might take a moment. There we go. All right, so again, this is our project overall. This gives us that summary of our cost, actual and committed, revenue, actual and committed, and unbilled receivables, as well as that profit and margin. So this is probably one of the favorites of most executives I talk to. So an overall view of all projects within the system. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and pass this back to Joanne and open it up for questions after a brief presentation by her.
All right, Jennifer, can you see my screen?
I sure can.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that great presentation. We did have a few questions come through, and we'll get to those in just a minute. I did want to let everyone know that our webcast today is part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series. Our upcoming webcasts are listed on the screen for you now, and you can find the entire schedule on our website at www.getgsi.com. If you would like to sign up to receive weekly email reminders of the upcoming webcasts or to receive our monthly newsletter, the GSI Insider, you can go out to www.getgsi.com and you can find the link for each at the bottom of the home screen. All right. So let's go ahead and get to those questions. The first question that came in, Jennifer, says, can projects have time approvers besides the one on the employee record? Also, can there be more than one approver with a customized approval?
Absolutely. So that can be designated at the project level and or through workflows. And you can set up whatever kind of approval process. So even if that's based on maybe over a certain amount of hours or certain clients that need to go through a different process, that can be tailored to those needs.
All right, fantastic. And then the next question is, can you use contractors or non-employees on projects, and do they need a license?
You know what? I will have to get back to if they need a license. However, I do know, of course, you can use those. They would just need to be in a different setting for your employees or categories. But of course, you can use contractors within the system. As we all know, that's a pretty big part of a lot of businesses.
Okay, perfect. And then can you import time entries from another system?
Yes, you absolutely can. NetSuite has a lot of capabilities of working with other time systems. Of course, we only showed the one today within NetSuite because that was pretty simple in our environment, but it is certainly easy to work with the uploads of CSVs into NetSuite from other systems.
Okay. And then can resources request time off, and how does that impact availability for allocating? I'm sorry, hold on. Where did that go? I didn't finish the question. I'm so sorry, Jen. Hold on just one second. Can resources request time off, and how does that impact availability for allocating or assigning to a project?
Oh, no problem. Yes, so the schedule requests can be made, of course, within the system, and how that impacts it is when you go to allocate your resources, you will see where that resource is allocated to time off or just unavailable. So all of that feeds in as well as on other projects. And you know what? Speaking of that, I should have gone a little bit more into that. So I do promise anyone that the next webinar we have on SRP, I will go into showing the resource allocation and how that works, as well as the time off requests and when somebody's booked on another project. So I not only appreciate that question, but that prompted me to change this a little bit for the next time. So thank you.
Excellent. If there was anyone who needed, to see that, we can definitely set up a call, with Jennifer later on. And then there is just one last question, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to send through at this time. And that was, will the demo be available after the webcast? And I can go ahead and field this one. Yes, we do upload all of our webcasts to our resource center, and you will receive an email with a link to the resource center where you can access any of our past recordings, as well as a PDF copy of the presentation. But a recording of the demo will be available generally by Monday of the week following when the webcast was. So let's see, those are some great questions. If there's any others, we can go ahead and wrap up. We do ask that as a follow-up to the presentation that you fill out a brief 1-minute survey. When you fill that out, you will go into a drawing to win a $25 Amazon gift card. And again, we appreciate you joining us on our webcast today. Unless there's anything else, Jennifer, that you want to end with?
I think that's it. I think we just look forward to anyone joining us on our upcoming NetSuite webcast. So thank you so much. Thank you, Joanne.
Sorry about that. Thank you. And if anyone has any follow-up questions, Jennifer and my contact information is located on the slide for you now. But other than that, everyone have a fantastic day, and thanks for joining.